Kalispera. Hello. How are you doing all today? Hope you're all doing incredibly. Welcome to the Devil's Office. Actually, the show is named now The Devil Knows. I am your host, Alexander Follenstar. I cannot even pronounce my own name, but that is not a problem, you see. It is not. Why? Because my name doesn't matter much. What truly matters here is your own conscience. Now, what the fuck is that? Let me tell you. I came to the realization these past few days that the true, challenge in our lives is ourselves. The real question is, do you understand yourself? Do you understand what makes you who you are? Now, this all may sound very sophisticated and a little bit, it feels like I'm dunking all this on you all suddenly, but I'm trying to build up on something. I'm trying to build up on. Whoa. Okay. Okay, the OBS is all fine. Excellent. I'm trying to build up on the idea of what this little show of mine represents. I want to understand, I want you to comprehend a little bit the seriousness of all this. It won't be that serious, but it's going to be a little bit. It won't be as chill, I have to say, as my normal chatting streams. This is why this is not considered a chatting stream. You see, I have this, as I said, realization that everything we do derives either from the need to find comfort, the need to get better, or downright a bad experience that basically we want to forget. That's why we try to find some way to cope with all that. Regardless of what the bad experience may be, you just try to find a way to, either not think about it or do something that will make you feel, free from the bad experience. One such example is video games. Video games, most of the time, is, as a matter of fact, a gamer's cigarette, basically. You see, excuse me, the comments are not visible, I just realized. There we go. Now it's all better. When you play a video game, you do it not just because you want to comprehend, not because you just want to see a nice story, or you just want to grab the controller and just press some buttons. You do it because you want either to free yourself in a different fantasy, a fantasy, that is basically, a world that is different from your very own, or you're just wanting to, let the beast out. When I was 12 years ago, what? Excuse me. When I was 12 years old, I did not know that. I just like to play video games because I just like that, the story. I never realized that a video game can become something of a, either a simulation to a certain, situation, such as a game with choices like Detroit Become Human or The Walking Dead from the Telltales, The Walking Dead. And also, I did not realize why is violence so amazing for so many people. I had encountered many games which were, first-person shooters, stealth games like Metal Gear, horror games, and I never realized why is that so appealing to people. One of the, in order to like understand how much I like had removed myself from such fears. Not Yes, it was technically fears, yes. I could say that, yes, it was something that I was genuinely afraid of and I did not want to understand. So I just, kept playing, you know, platformer games. Games who are for, children way younger than me. Like all the games I was playing were like 7 plus or 3 plus. That's it. I never dared to touch a game that was actually of my age then. For 12-year-olds or 15-year-olds or let alone 18-year-olds. Not because I didn't have games like that. As a matter of fact, I did. But I just didn't have the courage to face this dark reality. I didn't have a reason to. I played video games for myself and I just wanted to, stuck in this fantasy that the world doesn't have horrible violence in it. Now, that was understandable. I was just 12 years old, but, in terms of this day and age, you see games like Battle Royale, like Call of Duty or Fortnite, or like games that generally do have not just, violence on another scale, but violence also from people online. I would never dare to play a game that was actually online and, have the task to actually eliminate everyone else in order for me to stay like the one and only. Because I had this incredible fear. This fear that I do not want to face someone and fight him, knowing full well that is another person. Especially when you play online, like, there is no fun in that. Or at least I didn't believe there was. So I had to learn why violence is fun. Let me put some music on. Let me find some music, because I didn't actually find the music I wanted. Give me 1 second. Is this any good? No, it's royalty free. It's not no copyright free. What is the best like tag for music like this little show of mine? I do want something with suspense, but not something, intense. Is this any good? Does it get any? Oh. Doesn't sound that bad. Nah, it gets a little bit more, Hollywood-like as it goes. I do not want that. I want something chill, but yet, chill-y, Is this any good? Oh, yes, this is good. The dark ambient music mix. Nice. So, where was I? Yes. The first game that actually did had the feeling of horror in it, and yet it was not a horror game. It was a game that was inspired by Tim Burton's movies, such as Nightmare Before Christmas. That game was Medieval. My mother and sister actually loved Medieval. Medieval 2, to be specific. Medieval 2, it's a video game that was exclusively on PlayStation 1, and it was just, a cartoonish version of a dark reality. A Tim Burton movie, but a video game. It was created actually from the creator of James Bond, ironically enough. But I hated it. I do not know why, but there was always this horrible chill down my spine that I just could not face death. It was something that I didn't want to think about. It was something that I didn't want to talk about. It was something that I didn't want to encounter. It was something that I just didn't face. And now here I am, playing all kinds of violent games, not really giving much of a shit about who I'm killing, most of the time. But that doesn't mean I don't have the conscience of the fact that I am, as a matter of fact, killing. But I still do it. Why? Because I do find this... I don't know how to explain it. I guess it would be... If it's not satisfaction, then it's wrath. This need to cope with, with a reality that you do not like. And you find yourself in this position where you just want to take action. At least all of that is, something in our minds, something that is within our deeper conscience. The idea that we want to fight back. That said, there were a lot of things that I just didn't want to face back then when I was 12 years old. Like, from very younger age where I was, playing. Not I, it was my mother who was actually playing. I was just watching Medieval 2. And I ended up, being able to, find myself in that hole. A hole that everybody falls eventually, I guess. Especially when you play video games like, you definitely have fallen already. There's no saving you from that. Why? Because video games have a way of making violence fun. That is not necessarily a bad thing. As long as you're always conscious that, yes, as a matter of fact, killing is not actually a really good thing. In order for people to actually cope, the idea that killing is fine is either one, feeling that the protagonist deserves it, two, that the person you're facing is not a person anymore, it's a monster, or three, you just want to see a very dark reality that you would know very well that you're not actually the good guy. Medieval had many things. For example, the protagonist, Sir Daniel Fortescue. Sir Daniel Fortescue is a skeleton with one eye, nonetheless. Now, imagine that in a little kid's mind, how it looked. It looked like a fucking horror show. I could not stand looking at Sir Daniel Fortescue. I wanted to look anywhere else. But guess what? Anywhere else wasn't a choice. Why? Because the world of, medieval, it is basically an undead world. A very definition of the underground, but on Earth. Get it? Hell on Earth, basically. Ultimately, every time something was happening, like zombies appearing, hounds appearing, weird big metal robots like creatures that obviously do not look like, the beautiful robots you see on Power Rangers show, were always something that startled me greatly. There was a specific stage where Sir Daniel Fortescue jokingly loses his head on a falcon. The falcon confuses his skull for an egg and actually takes his head off, and he puts it on its nest, and you have to retrieve his head. And even though that makes for an amazing mechanic and a very hilarious scene for someone who is not afraid, for me it was horrible, because for the next 5 or so minutes, not to say more, I do not really remember because I haven't played this game for a long time, the fucking protagonist was walking without a head. Do you realize that? You had a headless protagonist just walking around the stage. Imagine this picture. Return back to when you actually started, before you actually started enjoying such violence. Except if you have balls of steel and you just never were afraid of something like that. Okay? Try to think a little bit of the first time you actually saw a horror movie, or you saw your parents watching a horror movie and you just so happened to walk into the, jump scare scene or something. Imagine that fear. The fear that you do not want to involve yourself in such darkness. Because you are full aware that you do not really have the power to do so. It feels like it when it comes to darkness, when it comes to horror movies, it always feels like the situation is hopeless. And especially for a little child who doesn't even know how the simplest of things work in the world, that's even worse, you know? Not being able to comprehend with such feelings. That's why the kids, whenever they get scared, they immediately either hide their faces, cry, or just run away, which is always, the natural response. We've come to a point where people do not really give a shit about horror anymore. Like, I watch Moist Critical videos about him playing horror games, and honestly, even though Moist Critical is a dope, personality, let me tell you, my god, whenever he plays a horror game and he is so expressionless, he makes the game look like garbage, even though it may not be. Why? Because this man just is not afraid anymore. Or he was never afraid to begin with. As I said, balls of steel. I want to believe that there was a time that he was getting scared, but that's the thing, he doesn't anymore. Why? Because he knows how to comprehend these feelings. You see, the thing is, when you do something for yourself, you're always feeling less motivated to actually go through with it. For example, if it was to romanticize the situation a little bit, like an actual hero story, that, a damsel in distress, it's actually, in danger and you have to face the big dragon in order to, save her. The kind of Super Mario mentality, you could say. Super Mario is actually one of my favorite games of all time, and let me tell you something, it's one of the first games I ever played. It's the game that made me a gamer when I was like 5-6 years old, when my parents bought me the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. I was never afraid to face the dragon Bowser because there was someone in danger, and I was always feeling that I am obligated to do so. I'm not facing the dragon because I want glory or money. I'm facing the dragon because the dragon put someone else in danger. It was, you could say, out of humanity or love even. The fact that you do not want to watch someone suffer. And this is what motivates you to actually do something more. Such as me, like imagine any creator, for example. A creator always has haters, but he always has believers too. And even though the haters always try to push back his work, his believers always try to push forward his work. And you could think of it like, in a sense, the haters are the fact that they are trying to intimidate the creator. That they are trying to... Okay, that was a little bit too dramatic. Excusez-moi. The creator is always pushed back by the haters because the haters will criticize him, tell him he's not good enough, that things will not work out, they don't believe in him, they always discourage him with any way they can. But those who believe in him, they try to tell him all the time that they believe in his work. They want to see this work to the end. They are willing to, actually spend time with the creator to show him that, yes, as a matter of fact, what he is doing, it's something that they are genuinely interested in. So the creator will not stop because he feels obligated for other people, not because for himself. Because if it was just for himself, very highly chance that he would just not go through with it. Again, too dramatic, my friend. And now it's way to action. Jesus, okay. But it's badass, I will keep it. That said, this is the very definition of how I managed to overcome these fears. There was in my neighborhood a kid that actually threw away one of the, car wheel controllers. I'm not actually sure how it's called in English, I cannot remember, but you understand, right? It's like a car wheel, but a controller for racing games. And he just, left it outside of a garbage can. So I did took that back home. Because, hey, if he left it outside of the garbage can, that means that he will grow up and he didn't want it anymore. And I just had racing games back then, so I was like, okay, a controller like that actually might, make it for me. But it wasn't the controller wheel that actually, was the satisfactory thing. I take out the wheel, I try it out. Apparently, 1-2 buttons were not working, but still. Free car wheel. But there was something at the bottom of the box. A game that changed my life, my perspective, and to this day I still play this game and I'm still inspired by it. Just a disc, without the case, in the bottom of the box. A game called Spartan Total Warrior. Now, you can already guess where this is going. The fact that I many times speak highly of my country, or not in current times, but I definitely speak highly of my country for its history, because yes, as a matter of fact, Greece does have big history, and that alone it's an amazing achievement for a civilization to have, such, has survived for so damn long. I didn't actually, I had mixed feelings. I was like, okay, I will try the game because I'm actually, kind of grabbed about what the game is about. But I'm not sure if I want to go through with it. So, I put on the disc, the game starts, and there is like this big speech in the beginning from Leonidas. Actually, it's not technically the Leonidas from the war of, the Persian War. It's actually an altered version of a Leonidas that had to face the Roman invasion of Greece. And he has this great speech that, I didn't know much English, but I could understand what the scene, what in feelings the scene was trying to interpret. The game starts, and Leonidas gives this amazing speech that, the war we're fighting is something that, should not intimidate us. Each of us is like worth 100 Romans. We will fight and die for Sparta, such things. And this alone, gave me a little bit of a boost. The fact that I am not doing this for myself. I'm not doing this because I enjoy killing the Romans. I do this for Sparta. This is the, message the game right off the bat gave me. Now, there is actually something else. When I played video games, even if there were games that actually were meant for kids, I was still intimidated by them because sometimes the game would throw you into a section without any friends to guide you, without any real, companion, and that's something that I always disliked. Why? Because I had also the fear of loneliness, basically, of abandonment. I do not know why. I was just a very innocent kid when I was young. For example, I played one of the good Harry Potter games back in the day, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets on PS2. And there were a couple of sections that were dark, but sometimes I was trying to go through with it. Sometimes I was trying to cheese the game into going around. For example, I remember that whenever you go out of Hogwarts, you will at night, at the night section, you will actually face hound shades or something that will chase you. And this terrified me. It was like ghost dogs just trying to tear me apart for no fucking reason, apparently. Considering the fact that Harry Potter in the Chamber of Secrets was almost like my age, it really felt this horrible connection of horror creatures trying to hunt down as a child. There were other sections where you had to stealth a little bit, and even stealth is something that I just, I hate the fact that I hate the idea of a killer seeking me. A game like Dead by Daylight is something that I would have never touched. Never, fuck that. Man, imagine oh my god, the chill you get up your spine, especially for someone who, is not used to the feeling. It feels like out of, out of like reaction alone towards fear, you're going to start screaming, even though the killer hasn't found you. We're talking about this kind of innocence. The game starts, Spartan Total Warrior, and you're immediately thrown into this, like, at the walls of Sparta. There are like hundreds of Spartans running with you to battle. And I felt this connection of brotherhood, you could say. Like, the fact that, as I said before, I'm not doing this for myself. I feel this motivation that I'm doing it for everyone else. If everyone is throwing themselves into the fight, why should I take the ticket to, escape this, basically? So the game starts, I do attack the Romans. Turns out the Romans in the first, part of the game is not actually that difficult anyway. But, if you do not believe, everything is difficult, my friend. If you start to believe, it's not. That is how it always goes. I start slaughtering Romans. I get through the next section. Like, in the first section, I think you destroy a couple of siege machines, like, made out of wood that basically are like carriers to carry the Romans on top of the wall. You destroy those. You go to the next section, and in the next section, it's just the Romans have invaded the courtyard, and you're just fighting the Romans. Your goal is to just kill all the Romans. Now we need a little bit of an action song, not so dark, because I'm talking about the battle scene. Yeah, fuck you too. Man, why is the music screwing me up so badly? Ah, this is better. There we go. So you're thrown into this courtyard, you have to kill all the Romans. And suddenly the game gives me a hint that whenever there is actually a gauge, how do you call it? A bar that basically fills up. It's basically your bloodlust, basically. And whenever this bloodlust is filled, there is a sound of, what I would describe as intense music. Yeah. Well, I actually wanted dark ambient music, but it has a mix of both a little bit. Some of them are like horror, some of them are, suspense. Anyway, out of topic. So, the gauge is filled, and the game tells me, like, freezes in that moment and tells me to press L1 and circle. And the very moment I do that, the Spartan actually goes into a frenzy a little bit, you could say. An electric guitar riff just plays. The entire world goes in slow-mo. The Spartan raises his sword and he slashes forward, slashes forward in order to cut their heads. The action would be from right to left, basically. And in that moment, I cut off 5 Roman heads. And there is also a little bit of a plot twist in the game. Your ally, there is actually a god who assists you in the war against the Romans. The god who assists you is none other than God Ares, the god of war and violence. And in that moment, where I kill these 5 Romans, the god of war tells me, "Doesn't it feel good?" And that was it. That was it. In that moment, I actually did felt good about hurting other people. And I didn't actually feel bad about it. Why? Because in my mind, in that moment, I did not do it for myself. Even though I felt good, even though I felt cool doing it. It was the most surreal feeling I have ever felt. And I kept using the gauge. There was also an alternative of that, combat move, you could say. If you press L1 and X, it's not about, crowd control. It's about a single target that is way more powerful. Instead of fighting a single, instead of fighting Roman legionnaires, you fight the Centurion, and the Centurion obviously has a bigger health bar. And if you press L1 and X, you are directly focusing yourself into one, enemy that basically has most likely bigger health. That's the way, it would be best. And I use that, and like the world again, guitar riff, electric guitar riff. The whole world goes slow mo. There is like a battle cry coming out from the Spartan, and he immediately like shoves the sword into his stomach. And as he's like, not only that, but the Roman actually tried to block the attack. But the the power was so unstoppable that the shield break. The Roman is actually stuck on the Spartan's blade, and the Spartan kicks him and like throws him away like 2 meters. And again, it felt good. The game continues on with another stealth section, actually. The second stage. It's almost as if this game was made for me to become a man. But in this second stage, which is basically an infiltration on the Roman camp, you are actually having an ally, and the ally of yours actually guides you through the stage. And whenever I was getting discovered, I didn't really felt bad anymore, because basically stealth was a little bit optional in this stage. So I slaughtered everyone. Every time they were seeing me, I didn't felt fear anymore, because if they were to see me, it would be bad for them. It's like that one scene where, a guard walks into the room, sees Batman, and the guard like closes the door back. This is exactly what was happening in that video game. But, it would that would be the best case scenario for the enemies. And again, I didn't feel bad about them. Why? Because I had dehumanized them. They were the ones who were on the attack. Chris was the one who was on the defense. So you did it for protection. You did it for the defense of others. You didn't really necessarily do it for yourself. It's not like you went out of your way to kill these people. Get it? And slowly, I was actually falling in love with blood and gore. But I still had a long way to go. The game progresses at some point. You have to go to the ruins of the legendary city of Troy. And there is one of the most amazing villains in gaming I have ever faced. I will never forget this game. Even though in English it's actually kind of ridiculous, his name a little bit, you will understand exactly why that is. His name was Sejanus. Yes, you heard me right, Sejanus. But this guy was different. This guy talked with such a gentleman style. He had his hair back like he was Virgil. By the way, I never played a Devil May Cry game at that point. As I said, a Devil May Cry game would also be a nightmarish experience to me. You understand? I never played action games, especially the ones that are very combat based. I preferred adventure games and platformer games. And Sejanus, he introduces himself. He has some supernatural powers because because the very moment he enters the scene, the fucker just rebuilds a bridge. Just like that. He obviously had some kind of god complex. And he says that you will not escape the city of Troy. You came here for no reason. You will just meet your death with everyone else. And in that moment, he casts a spell. And the dead rise from the grave. Zombie Romans, basically. And that was it. This stage from the very beginning throws you in without having any allies, and now I have to face zombies, which is basically the very face of what death represents. It was horrifying for me. Not only that, not just because it wasn't, it was just an intense experience, but I also did not really know how to defeat them. There is actually something that the game does not actually make very clear, especially for someone who doesn't speak very good English, that if you down a zombie, you have to press square in order to crush them. If you do not crush them, they will rise back up. And not only they will rise back up, they will rise back up headless. Yes, as a matter of fact, you can cut off their head, but they will still get up if you do not crush their bodies, if you do not burn them. So I was mostly using fire whenever I could. But, you know, I was still very afraid, so instead of killing everyone, I just ran forward. I move on to the city of Troy, and at some point I actually meet the... How it's called in English, goddammit? I have to type it down, goddammit. The Trojan horse, basically. Give me 1 second, goddammit. I'm pretty sure you already understand what I'm talking about, but I really want to call it the Trojan horse. Actually, in Greek it's Dourios Hippos. It's a different name, but Dourios Hippos also translates for stalking horse. Yes, that's why it's different from English. So, the stalking horse. Eventually, I encountered that, but the horse was never opened. What happened to the Greeks inside? So I blow open the Trojan horse, and from inside the horse, dead Greek soldiers, not zombie-like, skeleton-like, came out from the horse. It was horrible, and they were running so fast too. I was, horrified from I had literally, shit my pants at that point. I could not believe my eyes. This game was very surreal for what, even though it was like an ancient kind of game, this game was really surreal on what supernatural you may encounter. And I remember for a while I actually stopped playing the game, but then I was left with the guilt that I actually betrayed Sparta, or that I disappointed the people of Sparta. It actually hit me patriotically, not gonna lie. Like playing a game that actually, is about your culture, it's something that really pushes you forward, not gonna lie. It was an excellent experience. One day, I just bite the bullet. I go through the game and I just, as sloppy as I was, because I was so afraid, I was actually, killing whatever I could. And I was biking out, and then I moved on to continue to kill as many as I could, as easy as possible. The good thing about the skeleton soldiers is that you have to kill them once. You don't really have to crush them or anything like the zombie Romans. So I get to the final chamber, and then I face Sejanus again. And Sejanus actually created a puppet of you. An evil version of you. You see, as far as I know, or as far as I remember, I wasn't actually afraid of facing myself specifically. I was just afraid of making, I was just afraid of the dark themes most of the time. That said, I just pushed forward. I basically killed myself and surpassed myself. Which in that moment didn't felt as special, because I'm pretty sure I have seen something similar before. Like, I had played games like Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, for example, and I have encountered like other versions, like evil versions so-called, of the protagonists before. But that also derives from the fact that I actually never felt like I had any doubt from actually overcoming myself. And that was in a metaphorical and yet very literal sense. I was, as a matter of fact, overcoming myself the more I played this game. The game moves on, and eventually you actually overcome, the monsters of the city of Troy. There is also, like, at the end, you face the Hydra, which was shit. This Hydra was actually equally as good as the God of War 1 boss battle. And it's very ironic considering the fact that God of War 1 and Spartan Total Warrior came out, I think, at the same year. Very weird, actually. Kind of, like, very different games, but very similar aesthetics. I defeat the Hydra. It wasn't that much of a difficult boss. I do not know why, but huge bosses were never really that horrifying to me. Because I always knew that whenever it comes to a boss, there was always one weakness. I had to find the weakness, expose it, and then win. I move on from City of Troy. You go to... The game moves on and it takes you to Athens. Athens has been occupied by the Romans, and you're trying to raise a rebellion against, within the city. I think there is a philosopher actually that actually you assist. Which one is it? Hippocrates? It's not Socrates, definitely. It's not Plato either. Aristotle? I'm not sure. No, it's probably not Aristotle. Anyway, the game starts off with you wanting to assist that philosopher, and the game tasks you with one thing: protect him. He is about to be assassinated in the city square. And, the radar was not actually very well edited. It was... How would I say it? It's not like the kind of radar you see in RPGs. It's the radar, like a genuine radar. The only thing you see, it's the dots, nothing else. And you have to go around the city, find your way around and try to kill the assassin, basically, in order to not have this man, die. Because without him, there will be no revolution. Which was, once again, like me becoming a predator to the predators. Another, like, shift in my mentality right there. You eventually manage to, in the game, overcome this, and you raise a rebellion in the city. Which eventually, when the rebellion happens, you actually rise up against Sejanus, because Sejanus became basically a Praetorian commander on Athens. And you face him eventually. And you kill him. But unfortunately, in that game, in that moment, one of the characters dies. Sejanus kills him. And it was sad. This was the very first time where I actually did so. A genuine death that was like, it wasn't a Disney death. That was a death. Why? Because Sejanus is such a fucking asshole. But such a badass. That when he kills that character, he turns him into a zombie instantly. The character who was a friend of mine just a moment ago was turned against me. Once again, I was horrified. I was like, oh no, what the fuck am I doing? I was intimidated. Sejanus was very good at, basically being an intimidator. By the way, I just found out a couple of days ago that Sejanus actually is voiced by Malfoy's father. I cannot remember his name from, Harry Potter, obviously, since we talked about Harry Potter before. It's just an interesting little fact. That is one really good actor right there. Because that was actually, Sejanus always left an impression on me. At the end, you actually kill Sejanus, but the victory is hollow because you lost a good friend. Also, whenever the stage ends, this is, my god, by the way, a little, parenthesis right here, video games do not actually give us much character anymore, or at least they cannot give any more originality to the recipes anymore. Whenever basically the last screen that you past the stage comes up, there is this amazing music that plays in the background that always makes you so, like, glorified. It's amazing. Like, it's like I think I can play it on stream, but I do not really want to ruin the, you know, I do not really want to ruin the ambience right now. You can look it up for yourself if you're very interested. But when that stage ends, with your friend dead, the music has changed. The music is not the same anymore. It's not glorified. It's sad because you lost a friend. And that really hurt me actually. I didn't really like him much as a character, so I didn't cry for him. But as I said before, this was the first time that I actually encountered a death that it was not a Disney death. So it felt different. Ultimately, you move on. The next stage the next stage you enter, it's one of the most amazing stages in gaming history, personally speaking. You have to siege. That is actually nice music for what I'm about to say now. You have to siege the gates of Saturn. It's actually a castle, but it acts more like a border kind of settlement, you could say. And you have this intense battle, like thousands of Greeks running into the battlefield, and there is actually, fireballs from catapults coming down on you, and if that one hits you, you instantly die. And the music in that moment, I actually want to call out the music. It's actually called military funk, and it was actually so intense in that moment. It was so unique. It was like anything I have ever faced. Anything I have ever encountered. This was like a cup of tea that you were like, how can I say this? Imagine yourself having a new food to try out, and you are very hesitant at first because it looks a little bit weird. But then when you try it, you actually enjoy it so much. This was exactly the experience right there. Sieging a castle. Something that I never believed that I would do. So you siege the castle, you break through the walls, you go, you infiltrate it along with everyone with your armies. You face the Romans inside, and in that moment, like the inner gates of the castle open, and who comes out? Sejanus. He had been revived. For the first time ever, I encountered a villain yet again, but not in a cartoony way. It wasn't like Crash Bandicoot where you face Cortex again and again and again, because Cortex somehow always manages to survive the explosions, the high falls. It wasn't this cartoony feeling anymore. It was someone that I genuinely believed that he died, but he wasn't dead. And Sejanus says, face me for the last time. And you actually, at the end of the stage, you face him yet again, you fight him, and you kill him. And that's why, in the game, it actually says at the end, of the scene, at the end scene, that now, your friend's soul can rest in peace. Again, it was never something that I wanted to do for myself. I would rather run away. But it was because of my friend. At that point, this feeling of fear turned into anger. I was unjustified in some way, so I felt like nothing could stop me. This comes at the final part of the game. Throughout this entire game, you always have Ares by your side, but not, side literally. You actually face Ares, like in your head, like every time Ares just is there. Just telling you again and again and again, whenever you go into this Blandrank mode, you could say. More blood. I need more. Kill and kill again. Join me, and and you can kill forever. I will drown the world in chaos. And as I was a kid, I found it very cool to have someone speak in your mind whenever you were pulling off some amazing combos. But obviously I didn't know much English, so I could not really make out sense what he meant. But now that I am older, I realize this deeper philosophy and this impact that it had on me. It's true. It's true. I joined Ares basically, at least, in a metaphorical, subconscious sense in gaming. I joined him, and now I'm killing forever. I felt the satisfaction of, letting my inner beast out. At the end of the game, there is this amazing plot twist, obviously, that you actually have to fight the God of War himself, and you actually win, obviously. But, god damn, Ares won. Does not matter. By the end of Spartan Total Warrior, I was a different man. Or perhaps you could say that I was a man and I was not a boy anymore. I ended up doing so many crazy things that I never believed that I would do. The change was actually scary. But not scary in a way that I regret it. After that, I managed to gather the courage and actually play more violent games. Like Urban Chaos Riot Response. That game is also amazing. One of a kind, too. It was made by Rocksteady, the creators of, the Batman Arkham series. In this game, you are a police officer, and you basically, have to save a city from terrorists. And it has a very nice premise, a very nice story. And once again, it's a game that I didn't, it gave off the feeling that you do not actually do it. You do not actually do it for yourself. Like saving the city and killing all the terrorists in such a cool ways. Like, there are actually so many damn weapons in that game. God damn. Like, you can actually acquire a cleaver from them, because they use cleavers at the beginning of the game, and you can actually throw that cleaver right in between their eyes. And if you were to get them, there was this amazing slow-mo close-up that you got them. The feeling is just amazing. But I don't think I would have felt this amazing feeling if I didn't actually, enjoyed, like I didn't have gone through this evolution through Spartan Total Warrior. So basically, this is my story. I ended up playing so many violent games afterwards. By the way, not Spartan Total Warrior, Urban Chaos Rider Response, it's actually a first-person game. And first-person games, with guns and such, were always a no-no to me. I also had another game that is actually, a very dark one, King's Field 4. I would never touch this game for nothing. But I did, eventually. I did actually play King's Field 4. King's Field is actually the predecessor of the Dark Souls games. I never completed it, but I played half through it. It was actually good. It was actually fun. I played Hitman games. Hitman Blood Money. I completed it. It was one of the most amazing games I have ever experienced. It was a stealth game. I played God of War. I even bought games that I didn't expect that I would ever play, such as Shadow the Hedgehog. Even though this game was not bad, it wasn't a Sonic game. It was a very gritty, dark game. Because you do not play as Sonic, you play as Shadow. You use weapons, genuine guns, and in one scene, at the very least, on the beginning of the, of the intro, basically, it seems as if Shadow has killed Sonic, and it was always so, dark to me. I ended up playing such weird games too, and I didn't felt, fear anymore. I never felt bad about it either. I just let this enjoyment, let I just let this enjoyment go. Why? Because I was genuinely, you know, I was basically, under this spell. Like everyone else now. I had actually fallen into Ares' trap. This circle of violence. Now we move on to something different. The most important part of this video, in my opinion. The circle of violence. I have come to, try to, as a writer, I always try to evolve my writing. I always try to become better at it, or at the very least, and gain more and more knowledge about philosophies of, humanity, in order to be able to write better stories and romanticize things better. One game that is very controversial is none other than The Last of Us Part 2. This game got shit on from many, and it was, talked very good from many others. But what I want to say is that this game is actually, the truth is in between. This game, it was not meant to be a video game. Unfortunately. Or at the very least, it took a road that nobody wanted to see. What I'm trying to say is, have you ever heard the term anti-war? Let me explain to you what anti-war is actually trying to be. Anti-war is most of the time something that is trying to push forward why violence, the circle of violence, and overall, the killing and all that, just, it's unnecessary. Why? Because there is nothing to be gained from it. There are many games there are many movies, war movies, that are trying to be anti-war. But I heard something from someone recently that actually, stuck with me. That an anti-war movie, in order to become anti-war, it has to prove that there is truly nothing to be gained from fighting, from killing, from doing horrendous things. The example he used was All Quiet at the Western Front. An amazing movie. I haven't actually watched it, but I know the premise, that you see the World War II from the eyes of a German soldier. What is the reason why it's such a good anti-war movie, it's because just that. It proves that, or at least it shows, that there is nothing to be gained. And the fact that you actually, watching this from the German side, you know for a fact that they are going to lose. So it doesn't matter if this German soldier is trying to save someone, or he's trying to run away, or he's fighting other soldiers. You know, as a matter of fact, that this war is pointless. There is nothing to be gained. He will not be a hero. It's not like Saving Private Ryan, because in Saving Private Ryan, the protagonist, which is played one of the most amazing actors of them all, Tom Hanks, he actually is, he basically gets this hero status in the end, right? But that's the thing. It's not anti-war if there is something to be gained. The Last of Us Part 2 tried to show this side of, this circle of violence, and basically become an anti-war game. With one problem. The fact that the audience fucking love fighting. And not only they love fighting, but the combat of The Last of Us, it's actually fucking dope. You get it? So how are you going to explain this mentally to someone? That fighting is bad, but it feels so fucking good. It's like trying to say to a drug addict that drugs are bad. Yeah, so fucking what, he will tell you. Get it? This is this is our own addiction in video games. Not that we are violent by nature, but because in video games, in this simulation, being the hero, so-called, and going out on a rampage and also unleashing the frustrations of reality itself, it's something that really make us, enjoying the violence, basically. Is that bad? Well, no, it is not bad. The main reason why it is not bad is because as long as you do not actually commit crimes in reality, you're not actually a bad person. Or at least that's what society thinks. You see, I'm gonna get a little bit personal here. I have an aunt, and this aunt is, as a matter of fact, how would you call it? A sister, a monk in a Christian monastery. And I talk to her as often as I can. I love her a lot, actually. She told me something very important. That what truly is horrible about humanity is that people do not actually sin physically unless they have sinned mentally first. If you do not envision yourself stealing, if you do not envision yourself killing, then you're not actually going to do it physically. And that's the thing. That's the mentality that actually, it's the fine line. That the video games have given us this idea that yes, we have stealed, we have lied, we have killed, we have made bad choices, we have, committed atrocities, we have been cruel. A game like Far Cry 3, you torture your own brother, for example. There are even, as far as I know, there is also cruelty to Cyberpunk 2077, and I hoped I had some, something to say about that, but unfortunately I haven't played that game yet. I know, as a matter of fact, it also provides some really good, it also provides some really good examples, but since I have not played it, you can come up with the examples yourself if you have played it. And that's the horrible thing. If you do not learn, if you do not actually take seriously the idea that, hey, I do not play this simulation just because I want to have fun or just because I want to unleash frustrations, but I play this simulation because I want to know myself. To me, a disc, a video game disc, it's not different than a book. To me, I could say that it's actually an evolution of a book. Many people will probably, especially elders, will probably will not acknowledge that. This is actually a little bit... Actually, I remember this track is actually badass. I fucking love this track. So, I end up finding myself thinking, damn, if people do not have the conscience to understand that, if they do not have the intelligence, or if they just do not really think about it much, they might find themselves in this horrible situation where they do not really improve, but as a matter of fact, find themselves in, in character decay, basically. Being like playing video games makes you, having less temper, makes you do rash choices and feel like, you're gonna come out of top no matter what. It makes you kind of prideful because you have this sense that you have faced worse enemies before, you could say. It's all part of the subconscious, actually. It's not actually something that you can actually pinpoint in someone's personality. You need to talk with someone for hours in order to pinpoint this these specific details in their character if you're not a well-educated psychologist, I could say. That said, I'm not here to say that video games are bad. They are not. As I said, they are more like books. But they are books that I can actually teach you only if you do not necessarily try to take them too seriously, but at the same time do actually take them as food for thought. It is, to my understanding, something that it would be it would be best for kids to not actually play violent games until the age of 12. Then again, it always comes down to also family background and such. But in my opinion, this is like the best course of action. Unfortunately, it's not like that anymore. Like, I have seen kids, little brats, 9-year-olds, think that they already own the world. And you know it's gonna get worse as they grow. Especially with the idea that, you know, sinning and doing bad things, it's actually something cool. Actually, not gonna lie, these kinds of themes are the themes I'm going to use on my own lore at some point. Man, I'm sorry, but I will not, I have to be honest with you. Whenever it comes down to lore, I just have to, or whenever I do or say something that reminds me of my lore, I have to mention it because I have this very need, I could say, to, satisfy, you could say, myself from trying to tell amazing stories. The Last of Us Part 2, as I was saying, it's a game that actually did not belong to this audience. That's why half the people hated it. Not because it was a bad game, but it was trying to tell a story with, contradicting itself with amazing combat, basically. It was a very bold action to do something like that, but because, at the end, I know the ending of The Last of Us Part 2, there is nothing to be gained from violence and war, right? At the end of The Last of Us Part 2, you have lost everything that mattered. But that is the problem. The problem is that, for example, Joel. Imagine yourself, imagine what kind of fuck up it is for you to wait for 7-8 years to watch a character, to see again a character that you love deeply. I cannot even explain to you how many people just fucking love Joel. I love Joel, you love Joel, Joel loves Joel, everyone loves Joel, because Joel is actually Sigma male. And then, waiting after so many years patiently to see Joel again, Joel is immediately taken from you. Because the creators are trying to send the message of violence is bad. But that is ultra unfair. It's ultra unfair to the character that he ended up becoming basically a martyr to the idea that if you are circled around if you have fallen into the circle of violence, you are bound to lose no matter what. This is not how gamers think, because a game is not entertaining if it's doom and gloom all the time. And unfortunately, there are many things about reality that basically are doom and gloom, but that's not why people play video games. They play video games because they want to cope with the idea that yes, they are the hero. And I myself actually hated the story of The Last of Us. But I didn't hate it because it just made me feel with a bitter taste in my tongue at the end. I hate the fact that they actually took that course. I hate the fact that they actually, they wanted to implement something in a world when the world did not want it to be reminded of. To me, I would have preferred if they chose a different franchise. They have created an entirely, new kind of title for such a, an example, you could say. I would like to have, I would love to actually ask people what they think about their own experiences. What actually is the game that actually made them, shift from playing, goody two shoes kind of pure games to actually playing violent ones. The idea is that no matter how you twist it and spin it, people will love violence. When you were a kid, you loved cartoon violence because it looked so ridiculous. when you are an adult, you just let this frustration out, or you just enjoy the combat in itself, like the idea of being such a. This is too scary. Thank you. This is better. The idea that you actually, how would you call it? That you just enjoy the martial art, you could say. For example, Joel is it's a brawler basically, right? So you always enjoyed bashing people on the wall or in the desk. Kratos is more of a, is more of a how would you call it? A super warrior, basically. So every weapon he uses, it's always, it's always handled so perfectly on his hands. And a first-person shooter, let's say Apex, you enjoy the fact that even that it's, not a martial art, but you could say it's a skill. The fact that you can actually aim and immediately like pull the trigger and get that guy, basically. And all derives from the fact that people just enjoy. They feel glorified, basically. They feel glorious, actually. Whenever it comes down to it, why is this music so intense? God damn it! Give me something more chill. Thank you. No. Give me something with the piano. There we go. Where was I? And that's the thing. And that's how people change, you see. When they start seeing things differently, or more likely when they feel differently. To feel something is different, it's actually always changing for you. Such as in a relationship, for example. If you feel like the relationship is not as, is not as perfect as you remember, or it's not as, there are no more sparks in it. You're starting to feel like you're not connected with this person anymore, and you feel like it would be best to be separated. Or perhaps when you feel helpless about the project you're making, and you feel like, again, pursuing this project will be just a waste of time, so you lose all motivation and then quit. Or to say a good example, whenever you actually start building feelings for something, such as, you could say, a person you actually did not like in the beginning. For example, you could say that someone which you actually did not actually really, so much in them, but then you learned a couple of things of their past, or they started treating you a little bit better, or you started treating them a little bit better, and they corresponded with a very, a very nice altitude, you could say. You're starting to have these more pleasant feelings. Or perhaps when you, I don't know. There are many examples, but for now, not much comes to mind. Everything comes down to feeling, my friends. As my auntie said, it's more or less the idea that you will sin, unless you will not sin physically unless unless you have sinned mentally, basically. This very definition of a sh- of uh, of feelings changing us. It's basically like, you know, there is this quote that goes, we shape our tools and then our tools shape us. Basically, like, it's the idea that with every action there is a reaction. You make a choice, and this choice will have some kind of results or some kind of blowback. Depending on the blowback or in the reaction of other people to you, your feelings will change, and ultimately you will change. So that is the story. My feeling changed from fear to anger. You know, because I felt like, there was some kind of injustice in the world, so I wanted to take action, for example. And that's why I became more violent in the idea that I will be able to, strike back. It's always like this. It is always like this. Most of the time, it's how people just, just accept life. They do not really, they do not really seek something deeper from all of it, or they do not try to figure anything else out. They just want, they just, they let their feelings control them. And all of that right now, it feels like I'm trying to push forward the stoic mentality, and I actually love stoicism. I do not agree with everything. I think, like, I have heard a lot of things that I agree with, but I'm pretty sure that I have heard things that I do not fully agree with either. Stoicism is about basically trying to, god damn it. Stoicism is basically about trying to control feeling with rationality, putting your knowledge, or maybe your sense of uh, your sense of your logic, basically putting your logic forward of your feelings. Because have you ever encountered a situation where you're like, I don't feel like it? Just that, like, feelings. If feelings do not drive you, then you have to let logic drive you. For example, I do not feel like going to work today. Why? Because I'm bored. This is your feeling in that moment. It's boredom. But your logic says that, hey, if you do not go to work, you will get fired, and then you will starve. Oh shit, man. You have to go to work. This is a very simple example of what Stoicism is about. But it goes deeper than that. Most of the time, Stoicism always has to do with other relationships. Understanding human relationships specifically, and always trying to find, a kind of like a fine balance between actually letting the feeling drive you, but not completely overtake you. For example, if you love someone, if you really love someone, if you have that feeling in that moment, should you confess to them? If you put your logic in front of that, you'll probably think 1,000 reasons of why you should not, bother them. But that's not necessarily, a good thing, because that way you will not really live life much, right? So it would be best for you to actually let that feeling drive you a little bit. But if you let that feeling drive you too much, you might sound like an idiot. You might sound like a creep. You might end up, saying things that you do not mean, or you do not, express yourself very well. So that's when you put your rationality in front of you. You put the rationality of trying to explain the feelings to someone else. Like, it has to be, as I said, it needs a cooperation between rationality and, emotion. So to me, I do not fully like have a smile whenever I, face someone in a video game, unless unless okay, if the game is like so flashy, like Doom, for example, that I end up, really enjoying the idea that, okay, you know what, I am truly a badass. I'm the most the baddest badass of them all. You get it? This series I just created, it wasn't meant to be as serious, but I ended up, thinking to myself that, you know what, maybe I have to be a little bit serious. Making something deep, it's something that I am just good at. I understand that most people do want entertainment, and that's why I try to be as entertaining as possible, even in this dark kind of vibes, because I just try to do add a little bit of personality into them, or at least I'm trying to build a personality. But my role will not change because it's in my lore, and this is what I'm trying to push forward. I am a devil, or perhaps the devil, but sometimes you'll be thinking that, you know what, for a devil, is this all there is? Just comforting yourself with the good feelings, letting all the bad feelings out, and then just enjoy whatever, the mortal thirst drive you. Don't get me wrong, I'm just overthinking this at this point, but I just love, letting my, my thinking go out a little bit. I just love, doing things a little bit more dramatic than they always are. I do love to romanticize things much, and I just love making things more dramatic much. It's who I am, not gonna lie. This is what I'm trying to sell. I understand that this is probably not everyone's cup of coffee, but I do intend to believe that there are some people out there that my bragging, it is, as a matter of fact, food for thought, until it becomes a little bit of a headache. That's why they have to take a break from it. I have accepted that. I mean, me, processing all of those, realizations and feelings, and actually coming out and, trying to put them into words, trying to, explain myself over them, like trying to basically what would you call it? Come on, I said the word before. I got stuck now. Expressing myself. Yes, it takes a long while. It takes a lot of damn time. Like, you have an idea how many hours I have spent in my room contemplating like a hermit. Like, what the fuck is life? Like, that's exactly the tone. Everything is horrible. There's no hope in this world. Everything someone does, it's pointless. The one moment we are, and the next moment we are not. Like, no, okay, I am actually too young to be thinking so, boomer-like. But I do intend to think, or at least I do intend on envisioning myself as someone who, it is a little bit more conscious, you could say, a little bit more awakened from the average person. I just love philosophy, and I just do what I do, sometimes on automatic. Like, I do not even think about, contemplating about anything. I just do. And then I come to realization without even realizing that I was thinking about it. That's how much of an overthinker I am. It's crazy, not gonna lie. Sometimes there are days where my head will just not stop hurting. Like, I will not stop having a headache. But at the end of the day, I feel satisfied. I feel good because I know my limits. I know myself. I enjoy the fact that I figured out something more than everyone else who's not thinking about it at all. Or at the very least, I try to confront it. Get it? So I guess you could say I fall a little bit in this idea that I am a little bit prideful about it, but I do not think any less from anyone else. I just enjoy the fact that I personally am satisfied with the fact that I know who I am. I know how I react to things, or at the very least, I know how I have the feeling that I know how I will react. Like, it's all about trying to shape your reasoning or trying to understand the trying to understand your reactions or your no, it's shaping your understanding. That's what I'm trying to say. It's about it's about understanding, you know. You know, it's the kind of thing that Socrates actually said. You know, there are people who do not know, and there are people who know that they do not know. And I believe I am one of those people who know, who realizes that he doesn't know. And that's why I consider myself, you know, I am satisfied with myself, thinking that, okay, you know what, I am a little bit better. Because I am trying. Or at the very least, I'm putting myself through the effort to actually try. Like, to actually achieve something. Even though I may not achieve anything. At the end of the day, all my so-called philosophies, or all my so-called ramblings are nothing more than just that. Ramblings. Like, the average piece of junk is actually more useful than my bullshit. I have also accepted a situation where that might be the truth. It is truly amazing. It is truly amazing that, you know, the human soul is actually so deep. If we were to consider ourselves as animals, then we will just let instinct and emotion drive us. Just that. But since we are not animals, and we are a little bit above animals, we are considered animals, but we are a little bit above it. We have understanding. We have logic, and this is what makes us different than animals. I don't think I will be making this series, daily. I just felt that I want to make a little bit more, I just feel like there is a little bit more when it comes down to let me gather my thoughts a little bit. I don't think I will just make this series daily, but I just wanted to add a little bit more to the personality of this channel. That's why I actually came up with this. The devil knows. I'm thinking of evolving it as I go. There will be way more topics we have to, discuss. There are all kinds of topics we could discuss. Oh, trust me. The rabbit hole of the human soul is way deeper than the rabbit hole of YouTubers, my friend. We can sit here and talk all fucking day, and we will still not figure out shit. I'm telling you this because I have found myself thinking all day and not coming up with anything by thinking all day. It is total bullshit, let me tell you. But that's the thing. There is no need to feel bad about trying. As a matter of fact, you should feel proud that you tried, even though you may not, managed in the end. You tried. This is something that you always have to, rely yourself on. If you want to find, if you want to contemplate, if you want to think about something, just don't go mad with it. Think about it, and if your head starts hurting, stop thinking about it. Go do something enjoyable. You deserve it. Because comfort, it's something that people need. Entertainment, it's something that people require to have. Because it's not like people nowadays focus so much on survival anymore. People do not really need to survive much, Everything they need, society provides them to survive specifically, as long as they have a decent job. But no matter how you see it, people need to find something to, to rely on. Not to rely on. They need to find a purpose, basically. They need to find a purpose in order to give themselves a little bit of a boost in the, in what they do with their lives. Because surviving alone is not satisfactory for anyone anymore. Except if you are one of those people who are genuinely just want to live a decent life, which I actually, if I had the hat, I would, take it off for you, my good sir. Being simplistic in our day and age is something that is almost non-existent, especially if you're on the internet. People seek comfort, people seek entertainment because they always want to have a little bit more, they want to have a break from all the madness, I guess. Whether that madness is called society, whether that madness is called frustration over relationships, or, feelings we do not understand, or ideally, like thoughts we cannot comprehend, or situations where we cannot actually face. It's always something that, it's always something that shakes us to the core. And that's why entertainment and comfort has become basically the coping of these struggles. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, the devil knows. He doesn't know best, but he knows. Not gonna lie. This was a fun stream. Do not be hard on yourselves. If you're trying, then you're already doing much. Too much, as a matter of fact. Trying, it's something, my friends. Have a good day. I'll see you on Friday.